Hey, this is the intro to the icosahedron video for the dance program here at Alfred University. And so in this video, I'm going to cover a little bit about what this shape is, its relevance to dance, some ways to use it, and safety. And once you've watched this whole video, you can sign the waiver and you are free to use this structure in a safe way and respectful way for this space. So the first thing, what is the shape? This is called an icosahedron. I'm going to back up and let you see it. There you go. The icosahedron, it is one of the 5 platonic solids. So it's a really interesting shape in terms of math and geometry. Each one of these is a equilateral triangle. There are 20 of these triangles or faces. There are 12 of these corners or vertices, and there are 30 of these blue edges. And this form is pretty interesting in the sense that it's called a platonic solid because Plato took these 5 forms that are considered part of sacred geometry, and he associated them with different elements. And the icosahedron was associated with water because it had like a fluid-like structure. It's also in terms of the sacredness, so people who study that think of this form as related to transformation or the transformative process. So one thing shifting towards a new form. It's also kind of interesting because for human movement and in terms of math, because these 12 vertices, or the 12 corners, are actually the corners of the 3 planes of motion. And so the 3 planes of motion are, we have the vertical plane, which is like the door plane, which is mostly upness and downness with some side-sideness. We also have the horizontal plane, or like the tabletop plane, which is mostly side-sideness with some front-backness. And we also have the sagittal plane, or the wheel plane, which is mostly forward-backness with some up-downness. Now what's also interesting, and it just occurs, so even if these were soft corners, not hard, they were like out of string, they would still be in the same angles and ratios, and the internal infrastructure of those corners is the planes of motion. And if you can track all of this, so the vertical plane, horizontal plane, sagittal plane, if you can track all that, the relationship of the primary pole, so the upness, downness in the vertical plane, to the secondary, which would be side-sideness in the vertical plane, so mostly up, down, and some side-side. The ratio or proportion of that is in the golden ratio, so that's also cool, and it just happens that way. That's what makes this form. So that's the sort of quick and dirty of what the icosahedron is. It's also a famous dice, so like the Dungeons and Dragons dice is in the shape of an icosahedron. In dance, so somebody named Rudolf Laban, who was a choreographer, dance artist, movement theorist, kind of a philosopher of human movement and dance. He also had a background in architecture. He started to notice that the space around the body through which you can move without taking a step, which has a name. It's called the kinesphere. And so I can reach my kinesphere high, I can reach it low, I can make it really big, I could make it small. That we move through the kinesphere, or the space around our bodies, in very specific and patterned ways, patterns that repeat, in part because of the actual material architectural structure of our bodies, and I think because of gravity. We're coping with gravity all the time. And that a lot of those poles, or the way that we move through the space around our body, our kinesphere, happens to move through the spatial poles of the icosahedron. And if you want more information on that, you should just contact me. But that this particular form was really relevant to the way that we gesture in our lives, that we move through our task-oriented lives, the way that we express ourselves, and that people who are really virtuosic movers, so like exquisite athletes, dancers, martial artists, that they tend to specifically use the spatial poles in the icosahedron. So Laban created things like what we would have as a musical scale, or a musical scale to play an instrument. He created spatial scales in the different platonic solids, this one being his favorite, as a way to both train and challenge and integrate the human motor system. So some other people have come to similar understanding since, specifically in neuroscience and neuromuscular training. But it was dancer Rudolf Laban who really first started to see this and develop it theoretically and in practice. And so as somebody who has studied Laban's work and teaches it, it made sense to have one of these and be able to work inside of it. So there's a couple different ways that you can work in it. One is you can just think of it like a jungle gym. And you can jump on in here and see what happens. Now, with any of this, it's really important that you are working with whatever a scope of safety is for you. So don't get cocky, basically. Stay within something that you can support at all times. It is a potentially dangerous piece of equipment. You could also take some things that you're exploring in human movement. So particularly, maybe initiating from one body part, like initiating from the core of the body. Let me see if I can show you that. So initiating with the core and letting the rest of the limbs follow. Or you could initiate with a limb, like a foot, and then a hand. So there's lots of different ways. So those are some simple ones. There's also these things in some of the corners. These are called blaze pods. If you want to work with these, they're lights that light up, and you have to hit them, and then they'll turn off, and you can do like agility drills and reaction drills. If you get the Blaze Pod app just on your phone, it's free. You can connect to the Bluetooth with that and use these. Sometimes they need to be charged. There's also things like you can wander around the outside of it. You can jump inside of it and do some yoga, so something like this. You can do some yoga in here. I even know people who come in here and meditate or just visually orient themselves, which is a really sophisticated thing to do for your brain, by looking at the vertices. And this helps them both visually and proprioceptively know where they are in space. It is lovely. I feel better having just done that. So there's some simple ways to get started. If you are interested, I can share some others. Just a couple of safety things about this structure. First of all, I do recommend wearing shoes that have like a kind of sticky bottom. Please clean them. Like, don't get muddy, snowy shoes in here. Please clean the bottom first, or better yet, wear shoes that have not been outside. I recommend having another person in here. It's a little bit safer. Let's say though, no more than 3 people on here at a time. There is this base down here. It's not perfect, so don't like try to rock and roll it, but it does keep it much more grounded. As I said before, it's really important that you work within this scope of safety that you can support. So yours is going to be different than somebody else's, but you need to be safe in here. And absolutely no drugs or alcohol. Like, don't be under the influence of those things. And don't be in the studio alone in case something happens. And the very last thing is that, please, especially if you've been sick or you have like lotion on your hands, as you leave, run out to the hall and there's a little bucket. Get a wipe to wipe it down. It keeps it safer, less germs for all of us. So that's your quick introduction to the icosahedron. And I am researching how this helps people, like what people are doing in here and what they're discovering. So if you are having experiences that are like aha or important to you, please let me know. I'd love to include them in what I'm doing. Okay.